Hey YouTube, this is Jeremy with the Practical IT channel. Today we're going to take a look at an Arch-based distribution called CondresOS. This is version 19.09 and it's based on the Cinnamon desktop. Let's get started. Alright, I've built my settings for the VM in VirtualBox, so we'll go ahead and get started with the installer. All right, so we are going to go ahead and choose the Start Condres Live. I have to say, other than the minor graphical artifacting in the installer, the installer is actually pretty impressive. Couple of little nitpicky translation issues, but that's to be expected out of a distribution with a small team and coming out of a non-native English-speaking country. If I remember correctly, CondresOS is based out of Italy, and I'm not really sure how big their development team is, but we might take a look at that later. All right, so we boot to the Cinnamon desktop, and the first thing I want to do is head to Customize. Oh, excuse me. The first thing I want to do is go to the Condres Control Center, because it does have VirtualBox settings already installed. It may not, however, let us in, because I have no idea what the password is that they've set. So that's not going to work out so well for us. We'll go ahead and skip that part and get to the installation. This is one of those places, it should stay install CondresOS instead of installation, but that's just a translation thing. Not a big deal. So I'll see about getting this started. And American English is fine, and it talks about proprietary drivers and accepting the terms, so that's fine. It hit the right time zone and the keyboard map, and we're going to erase disk. Use no swap at this point, and we are going to put it on the VirtualBox hard drive. Enter user information. All right, and next, just a summary screen and install. All right, so what I can tell you at this point is that my prior experience installing this the other night, I found that the installer got stuck around 21% and sat there for quite a while. Maybe they licensed the math from Redmond and made it not generate percentages too well. But so it gets stuck at 20% for quite a while. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, and I will be back when we get close to the end of the installer, and then we'll reboot and run through and get a Lynis score after we do the updates, and then talk about some thoughts that I had after spending some time using it. So I'll be back shortly. All right, we've reached the end of the installer and we're ready to restart for the first time. So we'll click restart now and done. And one thing that this one does not do is it leaves the ISO in, so we're going to shut down the machine. Jump in settings and remove the ISO. And then we'll restart again. The nice thing is that this boots up fairly quick. Well, it booted up fairly quick on the first time I installed it, but this is taking just a little longer. Fear not, we will get there. All right, we've got our login screen. And hopefully we'll see a desktop. There we go. All right. So, first thing I want to do is jump into Condres Control Center. And we want to go to Configuration, Hardware Configuration. And it is using the open source video. Go back. Okay. All right. Skip that part. Let's look at customize and desktop settings, current monitor preferences. And that doesn't help us either. Well, okay. Preferences. And we want display. There we go. All right. So we want, I don't know, let's say 1360 by 768. That'll at least give us a widescreen. That's much easier to look at. We'll keep that configuration. And then we can find our terminal and see about doing some updates. Now, what I will say going into this is that there is an awful lot of software installed with this. And so this does take some time, but I'm going to speed this up in post, and you might find it interesting how much software is actually installed. So keep in mind that we did not have to do any installation of the VirtualBox guest editions to actually get a halfway decent screen size. Once we had it installed, we were able to bump up the screen resolution with no issue. Now, when it gets towards the end of the installer, it does actually install some updates to the VirtualBox packages. So there's the VirtualBox Guest DKMS, VirtualBox Guest Utils, and VirtualBox Host DKMS. All three of those packages get updated as part of this process. So since I'm having a bit of an allergy day today, I'm going to cut off the audio and let this run until the end, and then I will come back and we will reboot and do a Lynis score, and then I'll give you some of my thoughts from my time I've spent using this. I will see you momentarily. Alright folks, I'm back with you. We've reached the end of the updates. I'm going to go ahead and restart this one more time, and we'll start talking about some of my thoughts and things that I've noticed while using this. Alright, so the first thing that I noticed that I was impressed with was that the terminal is themed nicely. I'm not exactly sure what they've used to give it the nice little tweaks, but it's less vanilla than a lot of Linux distributions out there, so I find that to be a nice touch. There is a boatload of software installed. As you can see with the updates that we just went through, there was a bunch of stuff there pre-installed for you, including Steam and Lutris. Well, I don't think Lutris was installed. Steam, and there was one other game launcher that I don't believe was Lutris that was installed. We'll find that out here in a moment. All right, log back in. All right, so we're booted back up. It did not, for some reason, save my settings, but it also looks like it switched to GNOME from Cinnamon. Yeah. Well, yeah, that looks completely different than where we started with, and I did not have this experience the first time I used this. So, I'm assuming that's control panel. Yeah, so this changes my thoughts slightly. Well, that's wonderful. All right, so yeah, this is definitely GNOME. That's interesting. It did not change like this before. So we were at 1360 by 768. Keep changes. That's fine. I'm curious now. Does it give us options when we sign in? And it does, look at that. So we've got the option of Cinnamon, GNOME, GNOME Classic, and GNOME is listed again. So we'll go back to Cinnamon. My first install I did of CondresOS, it stayed in Cinnamon after the reboot, after doing updates. So, little odd, but nothing that we can't work around if it decides to log me back in. So for all I know, and since I'm new to Arch-based distributions, some additional update could have been released between the time I did my initial install 2 nights ago and this recording that I'm doing today. But yeah, I did not have these issues before. If all else fails, I'll just boot into that other virtual machine because I know that's working. But I'll try this one again. We'll try Cinnamon again. No dice. All right, so we're just going to jump into my other virtual machine. So we'll power this one on. It's always great to have a backup plan where you're doing demos because something always goes wrong. Oh, I got a pointer. That's a good sign. Might be moving in the right direction. We got a pointer again after putting in the password, so we might be in good shape. Okay, so once again we've got GNOME. So that did not do that to me before. I'm curious why in the name of Pete it's doing that. But we'll run with it for the moment. Keep changes. All right, so let's log out one more time. And we are going to try Cinnamon with software rendering. Let's see if that improves our cause. And this is more of what I was expecting. So, has my screen resolution set that I was using the other night. Wait a minute. This is GNOME again. Scratch that. Okay, so even though the ISO says Cinnamon, this is in fact GNOME. And so that's not going to change my review a whole awful lot. What I will say, we'll run through a couple of things here. So about files. So this is using the GNOME file browser, whereas Cinnamon uses Nemo. I was impressed that in other locations, and it did this in Cinnamon as well, I was able to have all my NAS boxing show up under the file browser. Real easy, simple. Kind of wish Mac OS would do that, but hey, it's all good. So other things that I noticed. So there is a boatload of software installed by default. So you've got Chromium, you've got Firefox, even FileZilla, Google Chrome, LibreOffice, Play on Linux, which is a game launcher, and then Steam is here as well. So that's impressive. Nice for new users to have all that stuff installed by default. For power users, well, not so much. You're probably gonna be taking off a bunch of stuff. So this is Stacer. This is telling us stats about the computer. So I gave it a 25 gig virtual hard drive, and it's using 10.2 out of that 25. Memory is 913 megabytes out of 4 gig. CPU is under 10% at idle. 2 processor cores. This is a nice utility. Startup apps, system cleaner, search, services. That's handy. Processes. Uninstaller. I just mentioned a moment ago about all the software installed. Well, if you want a graphical way to uninstall some of that stuff, you've got it. Resource graphs, helpers, and settings. So that's pretty useful there. My other observations of using this. I did have under Cinnamon an issue adding a printer. It added it after I downloaded the vendor supplied PPD file, but I never did get it to print. So, not sure yet if doing anything different under GNOME would get me any further. I might play around with this later. But the thing I do want to take a look at is our Lynis score. And since I had to switch to my other VM, I know this is already installed. And so we've got sudo./Lynis audit system. And we're going to go let it go through. It does not detect the OS. We are running Lynis 3.0. And if nothing has changed from when I ran this the other night, we should get a score of 67. Which is really not too shabby as a starting point, and considering that I did not separate out, what do they say, home, temp, and var as separate partitions. Well, temp is a separate partition, but home and var are all on the root volume. But Lynis, I'm still impressed with as a baseline for security concerns. And it really does a nice job of being thorough and giving you a list of things that you can work on to enhance the security of your system. All right, so we are in fact at a 67. And if this video weren't so long already, I would actually go through some of the process of locking the system down. Now, I may do that in a future video with CondresOS, but at the same time, I may not. So, anyways, Final thoughts. I think for all the software that's actually installed, you get a rather good hardening index. I think it's a decent enough looking desktop that they give you on GNOME. Cinnamon wasn't bad looking either, but it doesn't seem to want to let me boot into that too easily right now. So yeah, I mean, if you want to live on the edge and play with an Arch distribution Arch-based distribution that has a lot of software pre-installed for you, not a bad place to start. If you want to mess with it in a VM, go for it. I'm glad to take the time to take a look at this one. It's one that prior to finding it on DistroWatch one day I had not heard of. It's been around for a couple of years. But yeah, I would probably clean up the desktop. I find this to be a bad flashback to the Win9X years, with the number of icons that are there by default, especially the ones that are advertising related. Really don't need the donate, forums, or homepage. Don't need installation once the installation is complete. Everything else you can get in the menu. Not really necessary to have it on the desktop in 2019. Yeah, that brings us to the end of another Practical IT video. If you like the video, please give a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and leave comments down in the comment area. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.